Hi guys! So today I'm going to show you how to make the most awesome chocolate cake. And by the way, it's completely vegan. What? Are you trying to tell me that there are no milk, butter or eggs in this cake? That's right, there's no butter, eggs or milk in this cake. You know what? She just never believes me, but I'm going to show you how to whip up this beauty. Let's see. I'm going to start by getting this cake pan ready. I'm going to use a loose bottom cake pan, and it's really important to use this loose bottom cake pan because the cake is going to end up being really moist and tender, and to turn it out of a regular cake pan is going to be a bit of a problem. So a parchment paper lined cake pan will just work out much better. I'm greasing this pan and the parchment paper with some oil. Normally you would use butter to grease a cake pan, but this is a vegan cake, remember? So there's no butter in this. I'm using oil instead. You can use either canola or sunflower oil to grease the pan. Really, the idea is to use a neutral flavored oil so that the oil doesn't leave its own strong flavor in the cake. So this is my biggest secret when I bake a chocolate cake, is that I dust the pan with some cocoa powder instead of using regular flour. This way the cake will slide out more easily. Plus, you won't get any white specks on the cake. I've just got the oven preheating to 190 degrees Celsius, and here's some lukewarm water. Lukewarm, not boiling. You should just be able to stick your finger in it comfortably. And I'm adding it to half a cup of cocoa powder. I'm just going to whisk it to get the lumps out. That's all nicely mixed up. I'm just going to set it aside so that it can cool a bit and get going with the dry ingredients. So I've got 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour here, and I'm adding 1 cup of caster sugar. I'm adding 3/4 teaspoon of baking soda, half a teaspoon of salt, and just whisk it all together. You want all the dry ingredients nicely mixed up together and evenly distributed. Now, as much as is possible, make a well in the center of the dry ingredients and pour in this cocoa mixture and half a cup of, again, a neutral flavored oil like canola or sunflower. I've got canola here though. And a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now just whisk all of this together. Again, no hand mixer or electric beater required. You can just use a regular balloon whisk and whisk all of this together till there are no lumps. There's no problem of overmixing or overbeating this batter because there are no eggs in this batter, or butter for that matter. Just beat it to get the lumps out. I reckon this works. Now for my secret ingredient in this batter, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of plain white vinegar. This plain white vinegar is what's going to combine with the baking soda in the batter to give the cake the rise that it requires. Now I'm going to pour this batter into the prepared cake pan, and it looks just so good. I could eat it as it is. Off to bake. So the cake takes generally about 30 to 40 minutes to bake, and now I'm going to let it cool on this wire rack for about 20 minutes. After 20 minutes of letting the cake cool, just take a knife and run it along the edges of the pan just to make sure that the cake is not sticking to the sides of the pan. Now I'm just going to open up the cake pan. Fingers crossed! I'm gently taking the bottom off to let the cake cool completely. And in the meantime, I'm going to make the chocolate glaze. So I've got 50 grams of chocolate that I've melted and cooled slightly. Just this glossy chocolate. And I'm adding 1/3 cup of sifted icing sugar. So it's starting to get a little lumpy. That's when I'm going to add some warm water. And just make sure that this is warm water, and again, not boiling water or anything. Now I'm just adding the rest of the icing sugar. Just work quickly to whisk it. If you don't follow a vegan lifestyle, you don't have to make this glaze. You could make a ganache. But even if you don't follow a vegan lifestyle, think of this as a much lighter chocolate cake to eat. Yeah, now the glaze is ready. So the cake's cooled completely, and now for the exciting part of adding the glaze. I'm going to very gently lift the parchment paper off, and because we've greased and dusted it so much, it's not stuck to the bottom of the cake at all. But you do have to do this very carefully nevertheless, because it's such a gentle little cake. This is going to be so awesome. Now I'm just going to pour all of the glaze, which has been cooled, on top of this cake. Just watch that. Oh my god. Just get all of that there. And use an offset spatula to just spread it around. And you can see that it's starting to set over the cake already. It's time to cut a nice big piece of this cake to impress someone, don't you think? It's a very moist crumbed cake, so you just have to be a little careful that you don't break it when you pull it out. Look at that. Not bad. You're getting good at this. See? I told you.
Sweets are an integral part of any festival. When it comes to Christmas, it's absolutely synonymous with a cake. Well, this is the Bombay chef Varun Inamdar, and today let's see a Christmas special plum cake. For this recipe today, I'm following a classic pound cake recipe. A pound cake has your butter, sugar, flour and eggs of the same proportion. First things first, soft butter goes in a large bowl. To this, I'm adding in sifted powdered sugar, and this mixture needs to be nicely creamed. Once this mixture starts getting shiny, I'll start adding in an egg at a time. Make sure after each addition, you cream this mixture well. Simultaneously, while beating the batter, make sure you're also turning the bowl around. Similarly, I'll add in all the eggs and beat this batter to a nice, smooth mixture. Your batter is halfway ready. Let's now move to the dry ingredients. For this, I need to take some refined flour. With this, some baking soda. Sieve these two ingredients together nicely. I'm next moving on to the soaked fruits. Well, I have some raisins here with me, which I have soaked in orange juice. I'm sieving all the liquid from the raisins and the black sultanas. This needs to be soaked at least overnight. I'm draining the liquid from both the fruits, and this now goes in the flour mix. Well, one of those major faults in the bakery world is when you make a cake, the fruits sit at the bottom. To avoid that, what we need to do is run these fruits into the mixture of flour and baking powder so they get nicely dispersed through the entire cake. Give this a nice toss. And with this, I'm also adding in another secret ingredient, which is candied peel. This peel is the peel of either sweet lime or oranges. This peel is candied in sugar syrup and dried under the sun. And next are some dried seedless plums, which are also known as prunes. The fruits are nicely coated with the flour, so this now goes straight in the wet mixture. Make sure we mix this batter nicely. To this batter, I'll also add in the reserved fruit juice, which I'd used as a soaking liquor. To add into the charm of Christmas celebrations, the most important ingredient to this is the spice mix. So let's begin with that. For this, in a grinder, I'm adding in some fennel seeds, star anise, black peppercorns, cloves, black cardamom, some green cardamom, cinnamon sticks, some nutmeg for its nice earthy flavor, and finally some blades of mace. Let's grind this into a fine and smooth powder. A tablespoon and a half of this spice mix goes into this batter, and now let's mix this nicely for the last time. Well, here I have a ring mold which I've lined with aluminium foil. Alternately, you can also use any mold of your choice. To this, I'm applying a little bit of oil, and this step technically is called greasing the mold. After oil, the next ingredient that I'm dredging is refined flour, because this would help in sliding the cake out after baking. I'm turning this ring around on all sides to make sure the flour is nicely dusted. And finally, I'm going to dab this out to remove the excess flour. I'm going to transfer this batter. With the back of a spoon, just even the entire top surface of the cake batter. This now goes in a preheated oven for 40 to 45 minutes. While the cake is getting baked, let's start making royal icing. Royal icing is a mixture of egg whites, icing sugar, and lemon juice. So first that goes in the bowl are egg whites. I'm going to start whisking this till it gets lightly foamy. Once this turns nice and foamy, I'll slowly start adding in the icing sugar. At this stage, I'll be introducing lemon juice. Because of the acids in lemon juice, the royal icing is going to turn snowy white. Let's continue the steps of whisking and introducing sugar simultaneously. The royal icing is nicely whipped and ready. Let's keep this covered under a damp cloth till it's ready to use. The next step is making the holly leaves and the berries. For that, I have some colored fondant here with me. Well, fondant is something which is made with icing sugar, glucose, and golden syrup. The detailed recipe rather, is there in the description box below. So let's begin with making the leaves. I'm going to roll this into a very thin disc. It should be roughly a 1 mm thick disc. With the help of a leaf cutter, I'm just going to cut some leaves. Like so. Just dab a little bit of corn flour and continue cutting the leaves. Similarly, let's start making some more cutouts of the holly leaves. These leaves next go on this piece of sponge, and the sides or the edges need to be evened out. By doing this, the edges of the leaves get nicely curled and make them look as natural as original. After the holly leaves, let's move to the red fondant to make some berries. I'm going to roll this into a long cylinder and cut these at irregular intervals because berries could be of irregular sizes. Let's roll these up into tiny little balls. Throw in a little bit of corn flour and rest these till further use. The cake is baked and ready. Let's move it out of the oven. Allow this to rest till it has completely cooled down. The cake has cooled down completely. Let's start unmolding it.
I'm going to run a sharp knife around the cake. Carefully remove the aluminium foil.
Let's start frosting the cake with royal icing, holly leaves and berries.
I'm going to give this a quick mix and pick spoonfuls and drop it on the cake. Make sure with the help of a bent knife or a regular palette knife, you frost the cake nicely and evenly.
This could be as rough as possible.
With the help of this palette knife, I'm just going to press the royal icing a little and make sure this rises into soft peaks.
Next that goes on top of royal icing are some holly leaves.
Finally, I'm going to take a little bit of water and just dab my palm. And on this, I'm going to place and roll a few of these berries. This is done for two purposes. One is to make it shine, and second is to create like an instant glue.
Finally, I have re-kneaded a little bit of the fondant and I'm rolling this into a thin, long strip.
Keep dabbing with a little bit of corn flour to make sure this does not stick, and keep rolling it long and thin. I'm going to place this aside and start rolling the red fondant similarly. I'm going to press this at one of the sides and start intertwining these by twisting it around.
Rich, fruity, sweet, with a touch of spice. That's all I can think of when it comes to a good Christmas plum cake. Well, enjoy this with your family and friends, and here's wishing all of you across the globe Merry Christmas.
Okay, I'm going to do a lovely pure chocolate cake. This is something that my wife really loves as much as she loves me. So this is for her. I've got a nice chocolate sponge, an eggless chocolate sponge. You get these days in the supermarket. This is a small, or let's say a half kilo chocolate sponge. So I'm going to divide it now into equal 3 layers. That's the first. What I need is a serrated knife, one hand here, and very lightly, don't push, don't be rigorous, very lightly. So just through that. That's the first layer, all around, very lightly. Just make sure that the knife is straight, otherwise what's going to happen is your layer is going to be wobbly and then the cake won't look as nice. So straight layers, very lightly. So that's about it. You've got 3 layers here. I've got a nice sugar syrup here with some cinnamon flavor, which I'm going to spray on this. This is to make the sponge more soft and succulent, and to increase the sweetness. For the pure chocolate cake, I've got a pure chocolate truffle here. To make the chocolate truffle actually is very easy. What you need to do is take around equal quantities of cream and chocolate. Keep the cream to boil on a simmering consistency, and when it simmers down for 4 to 5 minutes, break the chocolate into bits and pour it to the cream and take it off the heat. Then keep on stirring it and let it set in the fridge for like 4-5 hours, so you'll get a nice thick chocolate truffle. Now a nice big blob here, and I'm going to layer this now. Now what you're seeing beneath is a turntable, which helps me to layer the cake very easily and evenly. Some hot water, and now with the truffle, just spread it all around the cake this way. Now the middle layer, which was slightly roundish, I'm going to place in the center because it has got a slight roundish edge which I don't want on the cake. So this can go in the middle. Some sugar syrup. Once again with my lovely truffle all around. Look at that. So this was my second layer actually in the sponge, which now I'm putting on top upside down like this. Some sugar syrup once again, just enough to soak the sponge but not excess that it starts dripping out. Some hot water and truffle once again on top. Spread evenly from center towards the outer rim and look at the turntable. And then whatever the excess chocolate here, just take it off and very delicately along the sides so that they get a smooth edge. And for the top bit, make sure that the surface is flat. Now this cake has to go into the fridge for about 5 minutes. And you can pour a nice shining coat of another truffle on top. Truffle that I've got here, I'm going to put it into the micro for around 30 seconds so it melts down and gets the shine back. So when I pour it on the cake has got a good shine and a finish on it. And the warm truffle on top. Now I'm just going to go around very delicately. Give it a small tab so the truffle settles down. For the side, once again, very delicately, just turn it around. Pick the cake and here it goes. Now just look at that. This was a lovely mirror shine that I needed in my cake. Again, some chilling is required because the truffle is still hot. And back to my garnishing. But before that, back in the fridge for maybe just a minute or more. That's enough. Now for the garnish, I've got some nice disposable piping bag here. And I've got a star nozzle going into it. And the truffle that I had previously used, which is a thicker one, in it goes. So the cake is here now. It's got a good shine. Now for the garnish, a nice piping swirl here. Lovely. So we are almost there. The cake is ready. The truffle is on. We have piped a lot of chocolate truffle on it. It's time to garnish it. Look at this nice solidified garnish with my triangles. You can use any actually. It's up to you. But just making sure that all the garnishes are in one direction. So the twirls in the center. Some color to life. Lovely. So the cake's almost ready. It's just time now to surprise my wife. So I'm going to call her.
Hello there, lovely people. Today I'm going to make a chocolate mud pie. And this is really chocolatey, so it's chocolate lover's delight. Right, we're going to first make our bain-marie. I'm going to put the gas on under a pan with some water. So while the water is simmering for the bain-marie, I'm going to melt some butter for the cookie base. So here I have 75 grams of butter. Let that melt. So while that's happening, I'm going to crush or stick in my blender 300 grams of chocolate cookies. So let's get those. Right, these are nicely crushed. So let's transfer this mixture into a bowl. And my butter has melted nicely. So let's pour this into the chocolate biscuits and stir. It should have the consistency of mud, funnily enough. If you've got any odd rogue biscuits that haven't crushed, just squish them in there. And that's ready to go into our tin. So before I line my tin, my water for my bain-marie is simmering. So I'm going to get my chocolate and butter in for melting. So that's 85 grams of dark cooking chocolate and 85 grams of butter. So let's put that on. Make sure the bowl does not touch the water. So while that's melting, I'm going to line my tin with my biscuit base. So push it to the sides. So I'm going to use my fingers because it's a messy task, and this way you can gauge how much biscuit you're actually pushing into the sides. It doesn't have to be neat, it doesn't have to be pretty. It will all work out in the end. Start spreading it. Right, I've lined my tin. And I'm going to put this into the fridge for about 10-15 minutes. It needs to chill completely and set. Right, let's check on my chocolate and butter. That's nicely melted. And let's put it onto the side to cool slightly. While that's cooling, I'm going to whisk the eggs and the sugar. 2 eggs. 2. Make sure you don't get any shell in there. And this is 85 grams of dark brown soft sugar. Whisk it until it's thick, light, and fluffy. So you can see that the eggs and the sugar have kind of doubled in volume and are soft and fluffy. So into that, I'm going to add my melted chocolate and butter. So I went to New York last year, and this is where I tried this dessert. I went into a little cafe just off of Central Park. So I ordered a double espresso, and I asked the guy, what is a typical American dessert or cake? And he said, chocolate mud pie. So I thought, I'll try that. And that's where I learned how to make this recipe. There are different variations of this. I mean, everybody's got their own version of it, but this is my version. You fold the chocolate into the egg mixture gently. Now, into this, I need to add 100 ml of cream. So continue stirring until it becomes a real chocolatey mess. So this is mixed nicely, and I'm going to go and get my base, which has had plenty of time to chill. I'll be back. Here we have my chilled base. Now I'm just going to pour this lovely mixture into it. This beauty goes into the preheated oven, 180 degrees, 40 minutes. Right, cake's in the oven. So while that's baking, I'm going to make the fudge sauce to go over it. This is really luscious and really yum. So, hob on. So it's 150 grams of dark chocolate just gone in there. 150 mils of cream. Double cream is preferable, but I haven't been able to get any, so I'm just using regular single cream. So into that, I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of golden syrup. 1, 2, 3. You just let that melt. So once that's melted, give it a quick taste. I do know that there are recipes out there that ask you to add icing sugar. For me personally, that is sweet enough. But if you want to add some icing sugar, add about 50 grams. Let that cool. So once our chocolate mud pie is out of the oven and cooled, this will be poured over it. Right, it's time to take this out of the oven. Right, it's risen beautifully. Now before we can eat this, we need to let it cool completely. This has been cooling for around 30 minutes. So we spread on this cooled fudge sauce. It may look a bit thick, but this is how it's supposed to be. Smooth it with the back of the spatula so that it spreads nicely. It needs to chill for another hour. I know it's a long time to wait, but believe you me, it's well worth it. Off to the fridge I go. I'm going to add some pouring cream just on the top. And there you go, my version of chocolate mud pie with lashings of cream.
Hello my lords, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Saraf's Foodlog. Today we're going to tickle that sweet tooth and make a delectable chocolate cheesecake. So for making the chocolate cheesecake, we first have to make the biscuit base. I have here with me 400 grams of homemade chocolate biscuit. You can use any biscuit you want, or you can actually Google how to make a homemade chocolate biscuit and make it on your own. The choice is yours, but please make your own biscuit. Now let's crush this biscuit. Once the biscuit is nice and fine, with albeit a few lumps, we add in 100 grams of melted butter and mix everything together. We then pour this into a spring foam pan and flatten it out to form a base. Once this is done, we leave this in the fridge to chill till we use it again. And now to make the filling for the chocolate cheesecake, we have 230 grams of dark chocolate, which we will melt over a water bath in a heat-proof glass bowl. When the chocolate has melted completely, we take it off the heat and wait for it to cool down just a bit before we add things to it. To this melted chocolate, we're going to add 460 grams of cream cheese. And we whisk this together. Now we add in 220 grams of brown sugar. You can also add caster sugar if you wish, or icing sugar. Followed by 10 grams of cocoa powder. And finally, 2 tablespoons of milk. The milk gives it a good shine and texture. Now we pour the mixture onto the cake tin, where we've already set our base. And spread the mixture evenly to form a smooth surface. Now we tap this to make sure there are no air bubbles, and because I like tapping things. And we put this in the fridge to set. Off we go. Now let's whip some cream to stiff peaks till the cake's setting in the fridge. I'm going to add some icing sugar to this, but that's optional.
stiff peak whipped cream. Now I'm going to transfer this into a piping bag made of my favorite thing in the world, silicone. That's only for baking, by the way, and phone covers. Cake has set, and now it's time to get it out of the mold. So, now let's dust that with some cocoa powder. And make some nice rosettes of the whipped cream. So there you have it, a delectable chocolate cheesecake to indulge your sweet tooth in. Enjoy!
Hi guys, this is Neha and welcome to Get Curried. Normally I've seen that there are two kinds of people in this world, one who love vanilla and the other who love chocolate. So today we are going to bring both the worlds together and make a chocolate vanilla marble cake. Let's start by taking 200 ml of condensed milk in a bowl. I've taken salted butter. In case you take unsalted butter, just remember to add salt to your cake. Now we are going to whisk this with the help of an electric beater. To this we'll add in half a cup of milk. I've taken milk that has been boiled and then cooled down to room temperature. Now goes in 1 teaspoon of vanilla essence. Again mix it a little. Next we'll sift in 1 cup of maida or all-purpose flour. We'll add half a teaspoon of baking soda to it and half a teaspoon of baking powder. Now we'll sift it. With the help of a spatula, just stir in your mixture. In case if you find there are some lumps in the batter, just mix it once with your electric beater. So our batter is now ready. I've already lined a cake tin with butter paper. I'll be pouring in 3/4 of my batter. Just level the batter a little. Now, in the remaining batter, we'll be adding 1.5 tablespoons of cocoa powder. Again, you have to sift it. Now mix your batter. Once the cocoa powder has mixed with the batter, we'll be pouring it in the tin. Just make sure you spread the dollops all across the tin. This is my first dollop. That goes my second one. This is the third. This is the fourth. And this is the last one. Now I'll be taking a fork and I'll be mixing both the batters together. Just make sure that you don't overmix it. The two colors should be separately seen. That's how you get the marble effect. Now my mixing is done. I'll just lightly tap the tin. This is to level the batter. Now I've already preheated my oven at 180 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes and this goes in for baking for about 25 to 30 minutes. Our chocolate vanilla marble cake is ready. Now let it cool down for about 15 minutes and then we'll demold it and cut it. Our 15 minutes are up. Now let's demold the cake. Before demolding it, just take a knife and run through the rim of the cake tin. Now we'll demold the cake onto a wire rack. Carefully remove the butter paper and turn the cake upside down. Let the cake cool down completely before you serve. Will take about 30 minutes. Our cake has considerably cooled down. Now let's cut it. You can have this cake with your morning cup of tea or your evening coffee, and don't forget to let me know in the comment section below. For such interesting baking recipes, like, share and subscribe to Get Curried.